next fight that we have on the prelims going to be Daniel Marcos versus Victor Hugo. Very fun fight. I mean, I think that this is going to be, especially Daniel Marcos, right? 15-0. He's coming off of that very questionable split decision win over Davy Grant. I thought that he lost that fight personally. Uh, 30 years old, 5'7". I mean, Victor Hugo, 24-4. He's coming off of the Dana White Contender Series where he got knee bar victory. So I mean, they're pretty much going to be the same age, same height. I think that Victor does have a slight reach advantage of 2.5. Man, Daniel Marcos. So coming off that sketch win, I mean, I think that fight was very alarming for me. He showed some low volume, freezing up a lot during the fight. It just seemed like a very different fighter as opposed to his previous UFC bouts. I mean, I watched him fight against Simon Oliveira, just finished that guy pretty good, right? And then in his previous Contender Series fights, doing pretty good work, even though that was also a decision win. I think Marco is actually pretty solid everywhere. Good power, accuracy. He can rack up the combos when he's in rhythm. He also has an 89% takedown defense, which is actually pretty solid. 15-0, so obviously undefeated. This guy knows how to win. 8 decision victories, 7 KOs. Has the power and cardio to last all 3 rounds. I think that last fight, the reason why it was so close was because I think that it was a stylistic kind of matchup, right? Davy Grant, very much a veteran, knows what to do. Davy Grant also can play the counter game with you, which is what Daniel Marcos likes to do as well. So I think Daniel Marcos just was matched up to someone who was pretty much kind of on the same level as him as far as skill, and they're both kind of the same style. That's why it was a kind of a weird fight, and it's a very close fight as well. And that's why I think he froze up, just because when he doesn't have someone coming at him, he also freezes up and waits for that opportunity, right? So I think the style made the fight there. The good thing for him about in this matchup is Victor, from what we saw from him in his previous few fights, he's a guy that always tries to come forward, right? Tries to get the sub or the finish at all costs. I mean, just looking at his record, 24-4, 38% of his wins are submissions, 33% of his wins are KOs. So he has 17 finishes out of those 24 wins. I mean, this guy also likes to take the fight to finish. I mean, he tries to get the fight to the ground and goes for the subs, but also, he can also knock people out. I think he has decent takedowns, can pump out those takedowns as well, but 89% takedown defense from Daniel Marcos. I mean, I think that's going to play a really huge part here. He is a fairly seasoned fighter, so he's not some guy that they just found that doesn't have any experience. Coming on short notice though, so I believe that he just fought like a couple weeks ago on Dana White Contender Series. So they just found him, and now he's fighting Daniel Marcos, 15-0. A part of me does think that this is a potential buy low on Daniel Marcos just because he looks so bad against Davy Grant. I mean, it was still a close fight, though. I think Davy Grant is pretty, decent as far as UFC caliber fighter. I think the pick for me is Daniel Marcos by KO, just because of the style matchup. I think that Victor is going to try to come forward and try to, get the fight to the ground, try to clinch him, maybe try to take him down. But I think he's going to not have that much success in that. And I think as Victor is going to try to do that, Daniel is going to piece him up, potentially even like a knee him or something, like maybe like a flying knee KO. So pick yours, Daniel Marcos by KO. However, just based on the odds, I mean, I don't know if I will put Daniel Marcos in a parlay. He opened up at minus 175. He's now minus 241, so people are buying in on the Daniel Marcos buy low. I'm probably not there yet, but maybe I might be convinced during the face-offs or weigh-ins. But yeah, pick for now is Daniel Marcos by KO, but I'll stay away for now. What are your thoughts on this fight, Gerard, for Marcos versus Hugo here?
Uh, yeah, Marcos, like you said, his last fight, I didn't like the volume output that he had. And if he comes out with the same type of volume and patiency, Victor Hugo might get in there, find some damage and to work with, find a submission even. Um, I like Daniel Marcos. He's like you said, he has counter striking, and in this case, he has a full camp here over
Mm,
Victor Hugo. Victor Hugo is coming off of a quick turnaround, and had Hugo been in a longer camp, I might have played a little bit of Hugo actually because I think Hugo is actually the more well-rounded, maybe slightly more experienced fighter here. And Marcos, I think he does have the striking. He probably has Hugo beat on the terms of striking, but Hugo's well-roundedness in terms of mixing it up and having a threat, whether striking or submission, is something that Marcos has to be constantly aware of and might even slow him down and freeze him up at times. So we might see him freeze up at times against Hugo, whether in the stand-up or on the ground or in terms of grappling. Um, this one I'm probably not gonna play just yet, and I'm probably leaning Daniel Marcos as well, just because he's probably more prepared, and Victor Hugo's on this quick turnaround. But I'm also considering possibly playing a little bit on a Hugo submission
mm,
because I'm not sure if we've seen Marcos get threatened by someone who has the submission ability of a Hugo in his
mhm.
career yet. So yeah, this is probably a wait and see for me, but as of now, I'm leaning Daniel Marcos, but I'm gonna wait and see.
Yeah, same here. Same here.